Hold on.
I never want to see her front again.
And Meghan are leaving the palace to become financially independent. And you see, this is what happens when you bring the first black woman into the royal family. Yeah. She looked at Harry and she was like, "Nigga, you need to get a job. You need a job. You a grown-ass man. You can't still be living in your mama's house, Harry."
And he'll say M and you'll say H and your friends say M and it just is a thing.
It's a thing.
And do you both love it?
Yes, and I like nicknames a lot.
Meghan Markle has unfairly got a reputation for being a bit of a diva, but royal insiders say she's only ever made one demand. Don't leave her alone with Prince Harry.
Negative about being a feminist. It's not the F word.
Meghan Markle is, of course, a lifelong feminist, which she's demonstrated by marrying a prince and giving up her job.
William or Prince Harry?
Prince William or Prince Harry? Well, the royal family, right, if you can imagine, they're like our Kardashians. Prince Harry is very much our Kanye. He occasionally dresses as a Nazi, and he fucked up.
Nobody expected a late-night Bravo interview to turn this tense so quickly. The setup looked simple enough: bright studio lights, a famous host, and a duchess stepping into the spotlight. But sometimes a conversation that seems routine can take a sharp turn when the questions start landing a little harder than expected. That's exactly what many viewers felt happened the night Meghan Markle sat down with Andy Cohen. What began as a polished television appearance slowly shifted into a far more uncomfortable exchange. The set of Watch What Happens Live glowed under the studio lights as Andy Cohen flipped through his stack of cue cards. The audience buzzed with anticipation, though there was also a sense that something interesting might unfold. Andy flashed his familiar grin and leaned toward the camera. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a guest tonight who's been in headlines across the world. Please welcome the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle." The crowd clapped politely. Supportive, but noticeably calmer than the roaring reactions some Bravo guests usually receive. Meghan walked onto the stage wearing a sleek black blazer paired with tailored trousers. Her posture was straight, every step measured like she knew the cameras were following closely. She smiled for the audience, though some viewers later said the smile looked a little controlled, almost carefully practiced for television. "Andy," she said as she shook his hand before sitting down, "thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here." The words sounded polished, almost like a line delivered many times before. Andy leaned back casually, swirling his drink with the relaxed confidence he's known for. "All right, Meghan, let's start easy," he said. "How's life in California these days? You and Harry seem to be settling in out there, right?"
Miss Meghan Markle is on the American program Suits.
Yes, Wednesdays, 8 p.m., USA Network.
The only difference between that show and this is people watch this.
It's disgusting the way the press have tried to manipulate, gaslight, and control Harry. I mean, who do they think they are? Meghan?
Nobody is a realer housewife than Meghan Markle, who married this ginger retard and took him out of his racist family so that they could live in Beverly Hills or wherever the they live.
Well, what's brilliant about what she's doing is she knows people want to spend money, and spending money makes them feel like they're getting something that's better, even though it might not necessarily be true.
Her reply came quickly, and the tone had a slight edge that didn't go unnoticed. "Life is wonderful, but we don't really settle, Andy. We create. We build things. That's what we've been doing in California, creating something meaningful rather than just existing." A few quiet chuckles came from the audience, though the reaction felt mixed. Andy nodded calmly, keeping the mood light. "Good to hear. And how are things with you and Harry? You know the tabloids always have something to say." Meghan's smile tightened slightly. "We're doing great. Despite what some tabloids like to invent, we actually have a strong marriage. So maybe people should spend less time obsessing over things they don't really understand." The room shifted just a little. Her tone sounded firm, maybe even defensive. Andy kept his composure. "Sure, people are curious. That kind of attention often comes with public life."
This finally showed that if you're a brand, it's toxic to invest. I mean, no brand is going to invest at the moment.
2 months, 3 months, hit the baby mama when I step into the house.
She's
I'm pregnant,
supposedly 9 months pregnant in the hospital room, dancing with a big belly. Harry's there too. She's kind of twerking. She's gonna twerk. Here comes Harry.
She gon' put it on. She gon' put that baby mom. Drop down.
She spreads her legs. She hikes her dress. She circles her genitals. And for her to need to make it into an ego trip, which she's clearly doing. Look at me dancing. I'm still fun and I'm sexy. And I have this great marriage. And here's Harry being like a normal guy is disrespectful, I think, to the moment, to the child, and truly to like the sanctity of what goes on for any humans who are actually in that situation. She's drunk on her own ego.
Meghan let out a short laugh. Curious is one thing, but sometimes people act like curiosity gives them the right to dig into every part of my life, my marriage, my children, everything. That's where it crosses a line. Andy raised an eyebrow but stayed calm. Fair point. Since you mentioned family, though, your father has been in the news again saying he hopes to see his grandchildren someday. Do you think there's any chance that relationship could improve? For a brief moment, Meghan's composed expression shifted. Her jaw tightened slightly. My father has chosen to speak to tabloids for years. He made decisions that prioritized publicity instead of handling things privately. That situation has been addressed many times. The audience murmured softly. Andy leaned forward just a little. So does that mean there's no chance he'll meet Archie and Lilibet? Meghan's eyes sharpened. Why should someone be welcomed back after publicly hurting their own family? Most people wouldn't accept that, Andy. Let's be realistic here. The sharpness in her words hung in the air for a second. The atmosphere in the studio suddenly felt noticeably colder, and viewers could sense the conversation was no longer the relaxed chat it started out to be. Andy kept his expression calm, refusing to match the sharp tone that had started creeping into the conversation. I understand your point, he replied evenly. But some people might say family relationships can be complicated.
I remember that day in Windsor. It was magical when Harry and Meghan got married, and I remember thinking that the world had finally shifted, that we were moving forward. But now we know that the fairy tale was actually the beginning of a very long and painful night.
Your millions from Netflix for no one knows what.
Put it with the rest of them.
Babe, time to do our daily $250,000 sponsored Instagram post for Delta.
Prince Harry at number 3. All right, we got 2 and 1 left. Who's gonna be number 2? Diddy made it at number 2. Wow, who's number 1? Who's number 1?
And sometimes worth trying to preserve. Meghan reacted quickly. People can say whatever they want, she responded, her voice tightening again. They didn't live my life. They didn't experience my reality. And honestly, I'm tired of people acting like they know what it's like to be me. Andy took a slow sip of his drink, that familiar half-smile returning to his face. From the outside, it looked relaxed, but it was clear he had noticed something important. Meghan already seemed tense, a little guarded, a little defensive, and the interview had only just begun. He decided to shift the conversation slightly. Let's talk about royal life for a moment, he said. When you first joined the royal family, you described the experience as overwhelming. Some observers have suggested you might not have been fully prepared for that kind of environment. Meghan let out a short laugh, but there wasn't much humor in it. Prepared? She repeated. Andy, how exactly do you prepare to walk into an institution that's hundreds of years old and extremely traditional? It can feel very rigid and outdated. I adjusted the best anyone could have. Her voice stayed steady, but the confidence in her words didn't go unnoticed by the audience. Andy leaned forward slightly. At the same time, the British public didn't always respond warmly. Why do you think that happened? Meghan's expression shifted into something close to a smirk.
In America now, and we don't give a shit about you. You're not our prince. You'll never be king. We hate your wife. Stay at home in your $29 million mansion.
Kim Kardashian deleted her photo with Meghan Markle. Kim K still has that X tape out online. But Meghan Markle was the lot of celebrity PR. Silence and omission can be just as calculated as a post, and the silence from Kris Jenner speaks volume.
Because I was different. Because I challenged expectations. I didn't behave the way some people thought I should, she said. And honestly, that's their issue to work through, not mine. A quiet ripple moved through the audience. Even Andy tilted his head with curiosity. Over the years, he had interviewed countless celebrities, but it wasn't often that a guest arrived with such direct confidence. As the camera zoomed in, Meghan still looked composed, though the sharpness in her responses seemed to be building. For Andy, it was clear that the interview had already taken an unexpected direction, and the show wasn't even halfway through yet. The commercial break arrived quickly, but the tension didn't disappear when the cameras stopped rolling. Meghan straightened her blazer with brisk movements, her expression focused as the crew prepared for the next segment. Andy, meanwhile, looked completely relaxed, casually sipping from his cocktail as if nothing unusual had happened at all. Moments later, the countdown finished and the cameras switched back on. "Welcome back to Watch What Happens Live," Andy announced with his signature grin. "Tonight, we're talking with Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. We've already touched on royal life, but let's step back even further." The camera turned toward Meghan, who offered a tight smile while resting her hands neatly in her lap. "Before the palace, before the major deals and projects, you were an actress," Andy continued. "Suits helped introduce you to a lot of viewers. Do you ever miss that world? The auditions, the hustle of Hollywood?" Meghan answered almost immediately.
Opposite. I mean, that's just another one of the malarkey stories she sold to the royal family for sympathy.
It seems like that lady is a temptress. She's a siren. She's lured him into the rocks.
You can't really see what is happening as a family unit. This photo represents the state of this couple's marriage and their life in general.
"I don't miss it," she said firmly. Acting was just one chapter. It wasn't the final destination. What I'm working on now feels far more meaningful than playing a paralegal on television ever could. A collective breath seemed to move through the audience. The tone of the response sounded noticeably sharp. Andy raised his eyebrows slightly. "That's interesting, because many fans really enjoyed you on that show. Some people might say it helped create the opportunities that followed." Meghan gave a short laugh. "With respect, Andy, my foundation isn't one television role. It's who I am as a person. If someone thinks a single show defines me, that probably says more about their perspective than mine." The room shifted again, though Andy remained perfectly composed. "All right," he continued smoothly. "Let's talk about your marriage. The public interest in Harry and Meghan seems endless. You've become global figures, but with that attention comes speculation, rumors about pressure, distance, and the challenges of living such a visible life. Are you and Harry really as strong as you say?" Meghan's expression hardened slightly. "I'm not sure what kind of question that is," she replied. "Of course we're strong. Rumors are just noise. We don't pay attention to noise. It's honestly surprising that people think they have insight into our marriage." Andy leaned forward again, his tone calm but clearly probing. "So from your perspective, there's absolutely no truth to report suggesting the two of you have faced pressure from media attention, life in California, or the many projects you've both taken on?" The studio went quiet, waiting for her answer. Meghan's smile returned, but this time it looked noticeably colder.
I knew her a bit before she met Harry. She was nothing like that. She didn't speak like that. Her mannerisms weren't like that. This is all fake.
Comfortable. I don't think, because she's done this before for photos, I don't think that is a real baby bump. I think
way too big. It's way too big.
And sort of too low as well.
Yeah, it's like a metre out there. I mean, it looks the wrong shape.
Where's she going to give birth there? Through her knees or something? I mean, that is too...
There was a sex tape about her.
And I saw.
"Andy, I'll keep it simple," she said. "Harry and I are stronger than ever. If people want to create dramatic stories to make themselves feel better, that's their choice. But our reality is love, commitment, and partnership. That's it." The audience responded with a quiet murmur. It wasn't applause or excitement, more like an uneasy shift in the room. Andy let the silence linger for a moment before moving forward. "Let's circle back to your time in the United Kingdom," he said carefully. Public reaction seemed mixed. Some people supported you strongly, while others were more skeptical. Looking back now, how do you interpret that response? Meghan's eyes narrowed slightly. "I see it very clearly," she replied. "Many people weren't ready for someone like me to challenge traditions that have existed for centuries. They expected someone quieter, someone more willing to follow the rules without question. That's not who I am. And yes, I believe some of the hostility came from prejudice. I don't think that should be ignored." A hush moved through the studio. Andy remained composed. "At the same time, some critics say the issue wasn't about race at all," he added. "They argue it was more about tone, about certain decisions and the way situations were handled." Meghan answered quickly, her voice firm. "That explanation often appears when people don't want to look deeper at what might really be happening. Saying it's just about attitude can be a convenient way to avoid a more uncomfortable conversation." Andy's faint smirk returned. "Do you think there's any part where self-reflection might play a role?" he asked. "Any moment where you might say, maybe I could have approached that differently?" Meghan leaned forward slightly, her tone cool. "Self-reflection about what exactly? About being myself, about refusing to behave the way others expected. If authenticity bothers people, then that's something they'll have to deal with."
Or a Duchess of the UK, and you can't even get a deal with people that are investing in businesses with a title. You can't get that. It's hopeless.
Is the cringiest, most uncomfortable piece of tape I've seen in a long time.
You might want to try the combo Andrew, Island, and Epstein.
And this is sweet. Meghan Markle said she has a finger they can use if they need.
A few surprised reactions came from the audience again. Andy slowly swirled his drink, clearly thinking through his next question. "All right," he said lightly. "Last topic for this segment. You've spoken many times about stepping away from royal life to gain privacy. But since then, there have been major media projects, documentaries, podcasts, books, interviews. Some people say that seems contradictory. How would you respond to that?" The question seemed to land heavily. Meghan's hands tightened slightly on the armrest before she answered. "Contradictory? Not at all," she said firmly. "It's strategic. We decide what parts of our story we share and when we share them. That isn't hypocrisy. It's about maintaining control over our own narrative." Andy nodded slowly. "Strategic or not," he replied, "it definitely keeps people talking." The tension in the room remained thick. From the outside, it was clear the conversation had moved far beyond a light celebrity chat. The colorful Bravo set still shimmered under bright lights, but the mood had become noticeably serious. Meghan crossed her legs tightly, hands folded together as if bracing for whatever question might come next. Andy leaned casually against his desk, cue cards still in hand. That familiar half-smile appeared again. "All right," he said smoothly. "Let's talk about one of the most widely watched interviews of the past decade. Your conversation with Oprah. Millions of people tuned in. The entire world seemed to be discussing it, but since that broadcast, some of the details mentioned during that interview have been questioned or clarified." Meghan kept smiling, though the tension in her jaw became visible. "I stand by everything we shared in that conversation," she said firmly. "Every word. That interview reflected my truth." Andy repeated the phrase thoughtfully. "Your truth?"
And the wife convinces you to leave the royal family. Like, I'm out. I don't need you guys. Which is crazy, because don't you just get free money?
I love your Luke. Sorry, what's that? Your Luke. You look amazing. Your Luke. My Luke. My Luke. My look. She likes my...
Kris Jenner's post on Instagram immediately after the party. I think there are the maximum of 20 pictures in this slideshow. She made the mix, not one glimpse of the royal couple. Because the reality is that in Hollywood, they're not royalty anymore. They're on the D-list. So they may get the invite, but they're not on the Snoop Dogg or Oprah Winfrey.
He said while gently swirling his glass. It's a phrase that's been used a lot in public discussions politicians recently, but when people hear the word truth, they often think about clear facts rather than personal interpretation. Meghan's eyes sharpened slightly. Are you suggesting I wasn't being honest? Andy met her gaze calmly. I'm pointing out areas where people noticed inconsistencies. For example, during that interview, you mentioned that you and Harry privately exchanged vows a few days before the official wedding ceremony. Later, the Archbishop of Canterbury explained that the legal marriage happened during the public ceremony. Some viewers felt confused by that. The audience fell completely silent. Meghan leaned forward, her voice firm but controlled. What Harry and I shared privately was deeply personal. Whether someone considers that moment legally binding or symbolic doesn't change what it meant to us. It represented our commitment. Andy gave a slow nod, though his expression suggested he still had more questions ready. Andy kept his tone calm, though the question itself was much sharper. But during that interview, you didn't describe it as symbolic, he said. You said, we were married before the wedding. A lot of viewers understood that as a legal ceremony. Later, the Archbishop of Canterbury clarified that the official marriage happened during the public event. When something like that gets corrected publicly, people start asking questions. Meghan's expression tightened. You're twisting the point, she responded quickly. That sounds exactly like the way certain media.
God, I can't even. These two, Meghan and Harry, are the worst.
You think your sister, Meghan Markle, has ruined Prince Harry?
The answer is yes.
He's duplicitous, self-centered, vile, disloyal, hypocrite.
She is an absolute user of the media. She uses every conceivable way to try and play the victim and score points.
Outlets analyze every word I say instead of focusing on the larger story of what I went through. Andy lifted an eyebrow but stayed composed. Let's stay with your own statements then, he replied. In that same interview, you mentioned feeling restricted, saying things like your passport and keys were taken, and that you felt trapped inside the palace environment. But records show you still attended public appearances, traveled internationally, and took part in several engagements. Some viewers have wondered how those two things fit together. A ripple of murmurs moved through the audience. Meghan shifted slightly in her chair. For the first time all evening, her composure seemed to flicker. Do you understand what it's like to live in a situation that feels controlled, even when everything looks glamorous on the outside? She said, just because someone appears in public doesn't mean they feel free. Every step was planned, every moment watched. It's not something most people would easily understand. Andy gave a small laugh, though there was no real humor behind it. Maybe not, he admitted. But what people do notice are contradictions. Sometimes the story sounds like you had no control at all, and other times it sounds like you were directing everything. Naturally, viewers try to make sense of that. Meghan's eyes flashed with frustration. People see what they want to see, she said firmly. I've shared my experience, and I'll continue telling it on my own terms. If some people struggle to understand the complexity of it, that's beyond my control. The dismissive tone caused another uneasy shift among the audience. Andy leaned forward slightly, his voice quieter now, but far more pointed. Some critics go further than that, he continued. They say the story has also become part of a larger media business. Documentaries, podcast deals, memoirs, interviews. From their perspective, they wonder whether the narrative has also been turned into a brand. The room seemed to grow noticeably colder. Meghan's lips pressed into a thin line. That kind of accusation is disappointing, she said carefully. We've used our platform to highlight important issues and bring attention to voices that often go unheard. That's not exploitation, that's advocacy. Andy slowly swirled his drink, studying her expression. Advocacy that also comes with very successful projects and large media deals, he said. Some people simply notice that connection. Meghan leaned forward again, the irritation in her voice becoming clearer. Do you challenge every guest this aggressively when they talk about doing something positive, she asked. Or is this energy reserved just for me? Andy didn't blink.
Wasn't there some speculation that she was on Epstein's yacht at one point in time? There was like photos with her and Prince Andrew way back in the day when she was like in her early 20s. Wow.
You know, Meghan's podcast has fallen off the charts. She's been criticized for the content. There are rumors that her As Ever launch wasn't as successful as she considered it. Critically, With Love, Meghan was not a success.
Zoom in here and it says, with the compliments of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. That is a title that was stripped from her when she and Harry made their whole racism debacle and left the UK, left their royal duties, and moved to the US to bug all of us. She's using it in private with her friends. That's even weirder than if they were still trying to milk the titles in public. That is just like all the confirmation that I need that this woman is just obsessed with being a royal, that is all this was all about. That she's angry that she screwed the pooch by claiming racism and basically getting kicked out of the family. She just can't give up the HRH titles that quickly. Like, this is literally what she has always wanted.
I ask questions when someone presents themselves as completely transparent. He replied evenly. Viewers expect honesty, not just a personal version of events. The audience gasped softly at the exchange. Meghan leaned back in her chair, her face flushed, hands gripping the armrests. For the first time that evening, the polished calm she had maintained throughout the interview appeared to slip. Andy took another slow sip from his glass, allowing the silence to hang in the studio. Cameras captured every small change in Meghan's expression. The audience sat completely still, sensing the moment had shifted into something much more intense than a typical late-night interview. Whatever had started as a routine television conversation now felt like a dramatic standoff, and it was clear the final part of the discussion was still ahead. When the show returned from the next commercial break, Meghan sat upright in her chair, her posture rigid. Even from across the studio, it was obvious she was trying to hold her composure together. When the cameras came back on, Meghan sat upright in her chair, her blazer perfectly adjusted. On the surface, she looked composed, but her eyes carried a sharp intensity that hadn't been there at the start of the interview. Across the set, Andy shuffled his cue cards before leaning back in his chair. The smile on his face wasn't especially warm this time. It looked more like the expression of someone who believed the conversation had reached a turning point. So Meghan, he began calmly, almost casually. We've talked about your marriage, your career, and that major interview with Oprah. Let's shift to something a little broader. Public perception. Meghan tilted her head slightly, waiting. A lot of observers feel there have been tensions with quite a few people over the years. Andy continued. Family members, former staff, even some past friends. Why do you think those relationships seem to break down so often? Her head turned sharply toward him. Because people betray trust, she answered quickly. Some individuals choose attention or financial gain over loyalty. That's not on me. That's on them. Andy slowly nodded, swirling the ice in his glass. So from your perspective, he said carefully, the pattern isn't connected to you at all?
She's not caring about what people think. Oh, yeah, right.
He is more than twice the most disliked celebrity in the world. More than twice the level of dislike than P. Diddy.
You just can't keep faking it. It's too hard.
Higher, bitch!
A low murmur passed through the audience. Meghan's expression hardened. I'm not going to sit here while someone tries to psychoanalyze my life on television, she replied. I've spent years trying to move forward despite difficult environments and difficult people. Andy leaned forward slightly, his voice steady but noticeably firmer. Difficult people, he repeated. Or perhaps people who simply see events differently than you do. Her face flushed with irritation. That's a pretty insulting way to frame it, she said. And frankly, it feels unfair. Andy calmly set his glass on the desk. This isn't about unfairness, he replied evenly. It's about accountability. When conflicts appear again and again in someone's story, viewers naturally start wondering whether there might be multiple sides to those situations. The studio went completely quiet. Meghan gripped the armrests of her chair, her knuckles tightening. You don't know me, she said, her voice trembling slightly but filled with frustration. You don't know what I've experienced behind the scenes. Andy's expression grew more serious. You're right, I don't know you personally, he answered. But people can still observe patterns. You began your career as a television actress, and later your life changed dramatically after marrying into one of the most recognized families in the world. From that point on, many of your public stories have focused on conflict or hardship. That's something viewers have noticed. Meghan inhaled sharply. That interpretation is completely unfair, she said quietly. Andy continued, still speaking calmly but more directly than before. You've spoken about independence and wanting distance from royal life, he said. But you also continue using the title that came with that chapter, while participating in major media projects, interviews, documentaries, podcasts, books. For some people watching, that combination raises questions. Gasps rippled through the audience. Meghan's expression wavered for the first time. The confident composure she had carried through most of the interview seemed to crack. After everything I've been through, she said, her voice shaking. How can you reduce my life to something that simple? Andy raised a hand slightly, signaling he wasn't finished speaking.
Suits actress Meghan Markle married some unemployed dude who still lives with his grandma.
Wait, it's going to be a massive bomb.
Woman looks to me like a malignant narcissist. This woman has zero self-awareness.
Why a lot of these celebrities that start these things, they can't keep up. You know, like the Meghan Markle.
What I'm saying, he replied firmly, is that public figures often face scrutiny about how their stories evolve. When different versions appear across multiple interviews, people naturally ask for clarity. The tension in the room became almost overwhelming. Meghan blinked rapidly, emotion rising in her eyes as she leaned forward. You're completely misrepresenting me, she said. Andy remained composed. Many viewers also compare how different members of the royal family handle attention, he added. Some focus primarily on official duties, while others pursue independent projects. Both paths exist, but they lead to different public reactions. Meghan shook her head quickly, her voice cracking as she tried to respond. That comparison isn't fair. Andy didn't raise his voice, but his words carried weight. Public life rarely feels fair, he said. It comes with responsibility, intense attention, and constant discussion. That's the reality for anyone connected to that institution. Tears began forming in Meghan's eyes as she reached toward her microphone, her hand slightly unsteady. Around the studio, the audience watched in stunned silence, unsure how the moment would unfold. Finally, Meghan pulled the microphone free. This conversation is over, she said, her voice shaking with emotion. I'm not going to sit here while my life is framed like this. Andy slowly leaned back in his chair, completely composed despite the chaos that had just unfolded. You're not being attacked, he said calmly as Meghan stood up. People are simply asking questions. Meghan rose abruptly from her seat, pulling the microphone free and dropping it onto the chair with a sharp clatter. Her heels echoed across the studio floor as she walked quickly toward the exit, shoulders stiff with frustration. For a few seconds, the cameras followed her movement until she disappeared behind the curtain backstage. Back on the set, the room sat in stunned silence. Andy turned slowly toward the audience and then toward the camera, his expression steady. Well, he said after a brief pause, that's certainly one way to wrap up a conversation. The studio reacted instantly, a mix of surprised murmurs and scattered applause from viewers who clearly hadn't expected the interview to end like that. It had started as a routine celebrity appearance, but somehow turned into one of the most tense moments the show had seen in a long time. Andy straightened the stack of notes on his desk and looked directly into the camera. Tonight's guest was Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, he said evenly, and that was definitely a memorable exchange. Moments later, the studio lights dimmed slightly and the segment wrapped up, but discussions about the interview were only beginning online. Now, the real question is this: did the host push too hard, or was it simply a tough interview that got emotional? Everyone seems to have a different opinion. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I want to hear your take on this moment. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, share it with someone who loves celebrity drama, and subscribe so you don't miss future stories like this one. Also, check out the next video that's appearing on your screen right now for even more celebrity moments and behind-the-scenes drama. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.